One thing is very clear, you have to be able to operate in GPS denied environment. EW environment also is going to be very important. Your weapons, your platforms have to operate in a EW dominant environment. Of course, the technologies are also changing very dramatically. You have to adapt to these technologies. AI, we are introducing AI-based decisions making in all our sensors, weapons to speed up their decision making. We are also focusing on directed energy weapons. As it was mentioned, the cost effectiveness of your response is also very critical. You can't be firing $3 million missiles at $30,000 drones. So directed energy weapons where the cost per shot is only in 100 rupees or 200 rupees are the way to go for defeating drones. If there is a swarm of drones, and you will need a directed energy weapon based on microwave. So we are working on those solutions.
Marshal Dixit, we've also seen, as we watch these exercises which happen between India and other countries, war exercises, training exercises. But with these new alliances forming and the traditional allies becoming now fractured and moving on to the other side, what happens when we do these exercises? Are we letting them in on our systems which can be used against us? That is the military aspect. Two, when we are doing the imports from these countries, does it matter at all who we export to, who we import from, with now nobody knowing who's your ally and who's your adversary?
So on the exercises part, I'm going to ask Marshal Dixit to discuss. Obviously, there is enough sort of separation to ensure that no leakage takes place. On the other part about
who we buy from,
yeah, I mean, it actually creates some delays in our export process because we always take MEA's kind of an NOC before we export to certain countries. So there is that, and probably we'll need to move towards a system where we have a negative list and everything else should, go on a kind of green channel. I think that will have to be worked on to improve our process of granting export licenses so that our private sector companies are able to grab opportunities rather than waste time, waiting for licenses and all of that. But yes, obviously geopolitical factors matter, and MEA should have a say in which countries we export some of our, at least the more critical or strategic equipment to. Obviously their views are important, but it should not become a drag in the process.
Just before that, for example, if we were sending something to Saudi Arabia, now we know that Saudi Arabia and Pakistan have a defense contract or understanding or whatever you want to say. Now, do we stop sending it to Saudi Arabia? Do we stop exporting to them? How does it work?
So that's what I said. We'll take MEA's clearance before we come up with those engagements. As far as I'm aware, Saudi Arabia has never bought anything from us. They buy entirely from the West. Mainly for the Americans, because they are obviously they have the resources to buy. Their problem is, as you would have noticed during this war, that they've been using THAADs and Patriots, $3 million missiles to shoot down $30,000 drones, and obviously the asymmetry is there, and that is why they are so concerned, and they probably will have to look at other options. And if we come in at that stage, I would imagine for defense it should be easier to sort of sell even to countries in West Asia for hardcore offensive weapons. Maybe we'll have to sort of take a careful look, but those decisions will be taken in consultation with MEA.
Marshal Dixit.
Exercises are very calibrated in nature. So when we start doing exercises with any friendly foreign country, we generally start with discussions and HADR related, human and disaster relief. Those are the exercises which we are attempted first. because that is how we build trust and we build understanding of each other procedures. Even when we graduate to exercise with the troops or with force, that also in a setting which is slightly artificial in nature. Even the weapons which are simulated or the ranges which are simulated, those are not the real ones. Those are agreed between both of us. So like this, we are able to actually not let go of all our secrets, and also we learn how they see. More important is how they behave, how they talk to each other, how are they comfortable with us, how much are they comfortable with us. So these are the intangibles which actually increase in exercise, and the real worth is flying together or running together or shooting together. So those are the things which are well calibrated and well managed in the setting.
Okay. Do you have?
Defense Secretary, sir, just wanted to ask you, like we talked about alliances, new alliances taking shape. Recent times, about 2-3 years ago, there was a feeling that even though there was not a statement or government official stand, but there was a feeling that now we have gone slow on buying equipment from Russia, and we are more moving towards the American side. Now, last couple of years, we see American behavior, not just with India, but globally. There was talk that we are going slow with them, and they have not been found to be very reliable partners. How does the Indian procurement work in that way? Like, you know, and now we are seeing that Russia again is back in the good friend book. So how do you see that affecting the overall long-term policy of the ministry in terms of procurement, partnerships?
I think India is pretty unique in the sense that it has seems to be friends with everybody. We are friends with Iran and with Israel at the same time, and in the context of different supply partnerships, I think U.S., France, Israel, they have helped us diversify our procurement away from Russia, which used to take about 60-65% of our orders. Now it is down to about 40%. So yes, there is a diversification away. We are picking and choosing based on our interests, our priorities, and based on the equipment that we need. And for the most part, I think almost 100% of the time, we take decisions based out of our strategic autonomy, based on our choice of what we do. I mean, we took the S-400, I remember, at a time when there was, some concern and some pressure from the US not to sort of go in for that. And I'm sure the political leadership in this country will continue to exercise that sort of independent pathway towards procurement decision making, and we will not let others guide us on what we take from whom. But yes, we are diversifying and ensuring that we modernize our equipment and reduce our dependencies.
Kamath sir, during the Operation Sindoor, globally it was talked about that it was a battle between Chinese weapon systems versus the Indian, French, Russian and other origin systems from the Indian side. That was also the first time when DRDO's weapons were used in a good manner, good effect. How did it feel that now your own weapon systems are getting inducted and being used in warfare?
It was a matter of great pride for us that the weapons which were inducted into our service from DRDO partners, because DRDO doesn't produce the systems, we do the development and the production is then done by the industry, that our developed weapons were used extensively during the 4-day conflict and they have performed reasonably well. So it was a matter of great pride. It has given the scientists the more motivation to work harder and produce weapons which will then serve our services in the future.
And sir, how does it feel when you see that in striker versus WAP kind of battles on social media, you don't have to say anything and there is a huge army fighting for you?
Let me not comment on what happens in the social media. I think it's best left to reporters like you. I will stick to doing my work, and We will not take part in battles on the social media.
So, Dr. Kamath, to you, when you talked about Operation Sindoor and the success stories and the sense of pride that you had with regard to, weapon systems competing with the world's best, China probably learned its vulnerabilities in that conflict. Did we learn about our vulnerabilities in Operation Sindoor 1? Because many say that the conflict probably ended quickly because we learned what we had to learn and now we are upgrading it because technically Operation Sindoor is still not over. We are still in a situation where we need to learn and upgrade. So what are your priorities now to plug those vulnerabilities?
Yeah, so every battle gives you some lessons and you have to learn from it and improve your systems. One thing is very clear, you have to be able to operate in GPS denied environment. EW environment also is going to be very important. Your weapons, your platforms have to operate in a EW dominant environment. Of course, the technologies are also changing very dramatically. You have to adapt to these technologies. AI, we are introducing AI-based decisions making in all our sensors, weapons to speed up their decision making. We are also focusing on directed energy weapons. As it was mentioned, the cost effectiveness of your response is also very critical. You can't be firing $3 million missiles at $30,000 drones. So directed energy weapons where the cost per shot is only in 100 rupees or 200 rupees are the way to go for defeating drones. If there is a swarm of drones and you will need a directed energy weapon based on microwave. So we are working on those solutions. Yes, we have learned the lessons from this short conflict and also from the conflicts which are going on globally, and we are implementing in our systems that we develop.
Air Marshal Dikshit, I have to ask you about the drone swarms. How are we, as civilians, we are all terrified now, like not just about fire safety if you're living in a high rise. You're also worried when you look at, how in this West Asia conflict, civilians living in buildings were targeted. How do I know sitting in a high rise building that there are some Indian Air Force personnel living in this building and Pakistan would target them in that? It's just a valid question of fear. So does that mean that in the near future, we are going to be seeing even civilian installations, not just say a Bhabha or a Jamnagar factory, which will have anti-drone capacities, but even civilian infrastructure will need this? How will you protect me as a civilian? Not just in the border, but right in the middle of the city.
Okay, ma'am. So the situation at border is very clear. There is no issue there. Now, your question is regarding this rogue drone. So somebody can launch a drone and send it anywhere.
Because our enemy is a rogue, right?
We have seen that happening in Russia also. Operation Spider was carried out by Ukraine, I think 4,000 kilometers inside the Russian territory, where they destroyed their strategic bombers, or 6 or 7 of them, where a drone was carried in a truck, a small drone, and it was guided. So this is a new kind of terror thing which is there. So there are 2-3 things which are happening. One is that we are trying to create a policy to tackle this. Second thing is there has to be process in place. Not anybody or everybody should be allowed to fly drone. So like you cannot fly aircraft just like that. So there has to be some process which is also being put into place. Now third is what if somebody violates these? So for that, there are provisions in Mission Sudarshan Chakra, where a lot of places, close to about 2,000 places in India, we are trying to identify, where we will be able to give drone umbrella, rogue drone umbrella, using, like Kamasar said, either high power microwave or direct energy weapon.
Right. Last question. Mr. Singh, when M. Marshal Dixit talks about, but that's a terror thing, can we really separate terror from our adversary? Because our adversary uses and has used in every conflict with us a mix of the two. So can we say that our enemy is not a terror force also, or employing terror tactics?
So we've never made any secret of the fact that we believe they use terror as an instrument of state policy, and they've been doing it right since almost immediately after independence, when they used tribal fighters to try to get into Kashmir. So there's nothing new about that tactics. It hasn't changed. And what has changed a little bit after Operation Sindoor is that we've made it clear that for terror attacks that target our civilians, our infrastructure, which are directly traceable to their country, we've made it clear, the Prime Minister has made it clear, that the new normal is that we will then respond invariably at a time and place of our choosing, so that some level of uncertainty hopefully will get baked into their systems as well, and that it will not be a costless exercise for them to carry out terror attacks, which they thought they could with a combination of deniability and obfuscation, they could do with impunity. That at least that impunity factor is gone, and uncertainty factor would have come in, that there will be a response, and the response could happen anywhere.
I think I have time for maybe one more question. What are the priorities, Dr. Kamath, would you say, for DRDO? And what is the first three things that you would want DRDO to want from the government and want from the private sector to concentrate on, if we are still in a state of heightened conflict?
Yeah, so our priority is to now get in all the disruptive technologies which have emerged recently into our systems. So AI, quantum technologies, then all these directed energy weapons. So our focus is increased cyber. These are the areas where our focus will increase dramatically. We are planning to work closely with industries to transfer the knowledge that we have gained in our traditional systems so that they can look at those systems going ahead. And we will work together with the industry. In fact, in all our mission mode projects, we have one or two development production partners. We hope that the knowledge transfer happens because of this mechanism, and they can subsequently take forward the life cycle support upgrades of those systems. And DRDO, we want to move on making sure that the nation is not denied any critical technologies. We have the capabilities of making all those critical technologies within the country. So that is our focus. My request to private sector is also to spend some of their money on R&D. As I said, the government will increase funding of R&D in the private sector going ahead. But it will be good if they also spend a part of their profits on R&D. This will widen the base and will result in achieving Atmanirbharta much sooner than later.